I am very cognizant of the fact that I'm standing between you and lunch, so we'll try to keep this lively. This is Quizlet's a direct-to-consumer company, so for those of you who don't think about sales enablement, this might be more useful for you. Today we'll cover, it's a little bit of a case study, how we approach defining our brand strategy, how we rolled out this brand to product and design teams at Quizlet, putting our brand into action in the product, and then looking back, if I could do it all over again, what I would do differently next time, which hopefully will be useful. This is me. I run marketing at Quizlet. I've been there for about 3.5 years. I started out as the first marketer at Quizlet. Our team is now 9 people across product marketing, growth, and communications. And so I do a little bit of everything. Raise your hand if you've heard of Quizlet. So if you're in your early 20s, you probably use Quizlet in college or in high school. And if you are maybe in your 40s and you have kids who are in middle school, Quizlet's probably a household name. If you're in your mid to late 20s or 30s, you've probably never heard of us, and that's okay. We are an online learning application that helps students practice and master what they're learning and confidently prepare for their next test, assessment, or whatever else they're studying for. So our customers are students. And when we started thinking about brand strategy, we actually acted like product marketers. We looked to who our customers are, right? So we have a unique challenge, which is unlike B2B product marketers, for example, we all have been our customer. And so it's super easy for us to fall back on familiar tropes of, well, when I was a student, this is what was true. And the truth is that being a student today looks very different than it did 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, when many of the people in this room were probably students. It's really hard. This is from a recent New York Times Magazine article about why more American teenagers are suffering from severe anxiety. This is not just an American phenomenon. We see this in Europe as well. We see this in Asia as well. I don't like to linger on this slide because I find it so upsetting. But anxiety is really, really a prevalent thing in the student population right now. And the good news for us, we believe, is that we can help. So we help 50 million students each month. We're in 130 countries, in 18 languages. And we know from user research that 90% of students who work with Quizlet get better grades. So what does this mean for our brand? I like to also point to this slide. And we know that we get better grades, but we also know we do something else, because we see this kind of stuff happen around graduation season, where students will thank us for helping them get to graduation day, which is so powerful and inspiring for our team. So what's our brand? And why did we start thinking about this? So similar to product marketing, we look to our competitors to sort of understand the lay of the land. Learn faster, learn twice as fast, learn German in 5 minutes a day, it's super fast. Study less, remember more, it's super easy to remember things. Achieve mastery. My favorite 2 are the bottom ones. Learn anytime, anywhere, learn anywhere, anytime. These are actually from 2 different companies. Make learning awesome. Your kids will love to learn. There's so much gamification, it's gonna be great. This is Quizlet. We say the exact same things. I wrote all this copy. It's fine. It's really easy to just turn back to that very functional benefit you deliver for your users. So that's one issue we identified. And then we have this other issue, which is this flashcard issue. So Quizlet is a platform. Students upload content, and then we will generate activities and games, adaptive study plans for them. But when you ask people what's Quizlet, they'll just say it's flashcards. So my favorite quote's on the bottom. This is from Catherine. She says, Quizlet is a website you can make an account on, but you don't have to, and it's flashcards. It's So the first thing we discovered in this sort of user research phase is that we help students achieve outside of flashcards. We know that the more students use Quizlet, the more they see the benefit in it. And so when you start talking to them, they'll say, well, yeah, Quizlet's digital flashcards, but also I also do this other thing, and it's so much more useful and powerful for me. And we see this in our data as well. So we talked a little bit, we heard earlier in the day about qualitative and quantitative research. And our own internal research into how students are using Quizlet, we know that for all different age groups, all different segments, flashcards are less than half of all studying on Quizlet. So there's so much more stuff happening, but people just fall back on this more sort of easy to identify thing they can do, which is it's digital flashcards. And the second thing we sort of identified is that we deliver an emotional transformation for students, not just an academic one. And this was really, really important because the utility is there. The utility is I get better grades, but we do this thing that's super important for students, and that's why they come back to Quizlet over and over again. When we look at the overall edtech landscape, we see that companies focus on helping students succeed really over-index on this rational side and underserves how hard it is to be a student today. And so for us, there was a real opportunity here. We know that we help students go from being disinterested to motivated and engaged. We help them go from feeling overwhelmed to in control and focused. This was a familiar sort of topic that came up over and over again in our research, which is, I don't know where to do, I don't know how to start, I have so much homework, my test is tomorrow, and they know that when they come to us, we can just help them take that first step to get closer to their goal. We help them go from being isolated to supported. We're a user-generated content platform, so students come to us, they have an AP History test tomorrow, for example, and they can see that, oh, I searched like the name of my textbook, and I found content that another student has put on. That student's gotten through it, I'll get through it too. And most importantly, we help students go from being anxious to confident and proud. I like this quote from Numer, one of the users we talked to. He said, I feel more confident and happier that I have something I can depend on. So we knew there's a lot of potential here for us. Our main sort of finding here is that we transform more than grades. We transform students. And that's really, really different than saying, get it done faster. So what does this mean for our brand? And I promise this we'll get into product marketing in a minute. So we decided we were like building out this brand strategy. We relied on this modern brand framework. We call it Brand OS. It's the building blocks. Marketing owns this at Quizlet, but this is something for the entire company to use. So your belief is a core foundational belief about the world. Your purpose is why you exist as a company. Your pursuits are how you take that purpose and bring it basically into action. And then the actions are like your OKRs, your decisions, who you hire, all that stuff, the day-to-day. This can feel a little bit like something out of like a marketing course that you might have taken in college. So I find it helpful to ground it in like a real world example we all know and love. Hopefully I'm not screwing this up if anyone in the audience is from Nike. This is what I've been told Nike's brand OS is. So their belief is if you have a body, you're an athlete, the purpose is to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And the pursuits are the best equipment for athletic activities, experiences that inspire athletic activity, and relentless innovation for top athletic performance. I think this is really important to say like how transformative a good brand can be, a good brand OS, because 30 years ago, an athlete was someone who was in the Olympics or played in the NFL. And today, because of what Nike has done to build into this brand, every single person who laces up their pair of Nike running shoes is like, I'm an athlete. I'm going to put on like my Nike running app. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this. So for Quizlet, our belief that came out of this is that with tenacity and guidance, anyone can learn anything. We think students bring the tenacity, and the guidance comes from teachers, from parents, from tutors, and yes, from us too. Our purpose is to make every student unstoppable. And we do this by connecting students with the content that's right for them, coaching every student through enjoyable and efficient routines, and building momentum through quick wins and relentless focus. In a lot of organizations, especially a lot of bigger organizations, brand strategy and product marketing are like two totally different things. We are lucky enough at Quizlet that because we're a small company, we're about 150 people, our marketing team is 9 people, that we can sit side by side and think about how these things interplay with each other. Brand is not something that lives off in like an advertising campaign where other people are focused down here, like typing away and like launching emails. They're very much aligned with each other. So what do we do with this? This was super important it was super important for me to think about, like, once we built this brand OS, how did we use it every day? Because this project was a failure if it lived in my Google Drive. And it was something that like I referred to when I did my like December 360 review. Like, remember when I did that brand OS that no one ever used? That was great. So how do we roll this out to the company and get people excited about it? Oh, I should also mention, we built a little mantra to build some internal enthusiasm about this. So said, congratulations, way to go. You just learned something. It wasn't easy. because learning isn't easy. It's an adventure full of twists and turns, detours and bumps in the road, unexpected and delightful pit stops. But in the end, it's worth it, because every new thing you learn is something you've conquered, a secret you uncovered, a prize you get to keep. So keep going. There's something else to learn right now, something new to master, something that will bring you a little bit closer to your goal, something to celebrate, learn on. So we wanted to build a little bit of sort of like a mission, not a mission statement, we have a mission, but more of like a guiding mantra for us around what this brand meant when we brought it to life. So then we had to roll it out to the company. And I started by getting our product managers and our designers in a room. I'd already worked with our marketing team on this. So we did a brainstorm. We said, we're breaking into groups. You get to choose a captain. You go for breadth, not depth. Aim for quick wins and longer term initiatives. So any idea is a good idea. And if it's not on a Post-it, it doesn't exist. We really wanted to just like do sort of that design thinking style brainstorm. And then we gave the team these thought starters. And these were specific to Quizlet, but of course, for your companies, you could do whatever was unique to your brand. How do we bring it to life through marketing? How do we use social channels to reward students? How do we build the confidence of a new generation? How do we help students take control of their learning? How do we prove out this story of transformation? We know from our user research that there is this emotional transformation happening. What does it look like to demonstrate that more to our users in the product? What are other reasons and benefits people could upgrade? We're a freemium business, so we have a free experience and then a paid experience. How could we use this brand to push people into a better experience for them? How do we create programs that reward tenacious students? So these were our thought starters, but it was a brainstorm. And the conversation went in a lot of different ways. Once we did that, we did a readout of ideas and options, very classic sort of design thinking brainstorm. We did all the Post-it notes, clustered around different ideas about things that people wanted to, like a new product marketing campaign, or a new marketing campaign, or a new onboarding activity, and tried to sort of cluster things in different themes. And then ideated on what was interesting, and then we did a go-forward plan on what to launch. And we did this with product and design, and we also did a separate one with the overall marketing team. And then we thought, great, what does it look like in action? So this is learn mode. This is our adaptive study plan. And essentially what happens is students create content. We generate different games and activities for them. In Learn, we basically will coach them through easier questions first. So if you know anything about like how students learn, or like learning science, which hopefully none of you spend your time doing, it's like much easier to answer like a multiple choice question than it is to type the answer to something out of your brain. So we will like progressively help students show their mastery with harder and harder questions. And we know that like when a student is trying to learn 100 vocab words, it's really, really tough. So we build them these checkpoints partway through with encouraging messages to help coach them to go one step further, to do one more round. We give them little mentions, sort of annotations about how much they've mastered and how much progress they've made. This has actually been in the product for a while. We continue to iterate on it, but this is a nice tweet from a student who says, "Shout out to Quizlet for remaining optimistic and believing in me. Even when I had all but accepted I'm going to fail. Happy stress season, everyone." And you can see some of these messages that we give students. The one on the bottom right, we get lots of feedback from people who don't like it. It says, "You're nearly perfect." That's what you get when you get like a 90%. But I think it's funny. It has a little angel. Let's see. We started thinking about like, great, what do we do to help encourage students every step of the way? And one of the challenges we have with Quizlet with new people sign up is, raise your hand if you ever crammed the night before a test. Anyone? Okay. So that's a very typical study activity. We, as a company that makes a learning tool, would love for students to study like every day in the week before their test, because it's better for your brain and it helps you learn. It's better for our numbers. But that's actually not how students usually study. They usually study in a long chunk the night before the test. So the challenge for us is, as we onboard people, how do we get them to come back? Because we don't know what they're going to need to study next. So this was essentially an email you get a couple days after you sign up, and it basically says, like, we can help you get started and make progress ASAP. It's a very low-key call to action because we don't have anywhere to send them. Like, we don't know what they want to study, and so it's educational. And we basically say, like, here's 3 ways to get started. The email's pretty text-heavy. It's not that pretty. we're working on making better templates. But the thing that I think is interesting here is just sending an email led to like a 1% week one retention, 1% increase in week one retention, which we're a company that helps 50 million students a month learn. So 1% increase in anything is pretty massive for us. And this is purely educational. Like the call to action is basically like go back to Quizlet and do it again. This one was really a fun test we ran. So if any of you also wear like a growth hat in your roles, you know that frequently you're told like make the funnel shorter, make it easier to get to the destination. So we tested this thing out where we said, tell us your goal and we'll recommend the best way to study. And then we did this little emotional check-in. We said, how are you feeling? Confident, unsure, stressed? And it actually doesn't matter what you answer. We send you to the same place at the end, but we wanted to test out sort of how this sort of study guide emotional check-in would work. And and I'll walk this through again. So we said, tell us your goal. How are you feeling? And then we send you to your destination. The interesting thing is we did a control, we did this 3-screen version, and we did a 2-screen version that didn't have this screen. And the 3-screen version actually led students to answering 54% longer study sessions. So just by checking in on their emotions, we actually help them study more and get closer to reaching their academic goals. The one where we had just this screen and this screen led to like a 42% increase. So both ways actually like getting in the way of students and doing a quick check-in before they just start studying actually led to better outcomes for them. But it's interesting because it's a good example of why you should probably always test because, if you read like, Lean Startup or any of those kind of things, it'll be like, oh, like don't get in the way of people's actions, like get them to their destination fast enough, make the funnel shorter. And this is a good example of like knowing your user, knowing what's important to them actually can lead you to do things that might be a little bit counterintuitive. So we haven't rolled this out yet because we need to figure out how frequently to give this to people. We don't want to do it every time you go into a study session. That would be annoying. But sometimes maybe we need a little extra encouragement. As we think about continuing to invest in this area, we want to focus on celebrating the wins a little bit more, checking in on emotions, creating moments of fun and whimsy, and then being empathetic because we know that the journey is tough. Think back on those like earlier slides about how anxious students are. Like it is hard work to be a student and like a lot is unknown. So how can we just make sure that we're there to support them every step of the way? And then if I was going to do this again next time, because it's always hindsight is 2020, I think I would focus on getting more product buy-in earlier. I did a fair number of sort of check-ins, and our VP of product was brought in on this process as well. But more product buy-in is always good because you're more likely to get your stuff built. I would have created a more concrete deliverable connected to our brand work. So we phased this project out in 2 sections. The first one was sort of the overall brand OS. And then we had sort of a key like homepage and other marketing pages project that followed. I would have, I think, hit a little bit better with our team. And we probably would have gotten some faster results if we lumped those two together. The alternative, though, is that we were able to build some momentum because the first piece, that brand OS, hit really well. So we were able to build momentum and buy-in for the second piece. And then identifying and executing a few quick wins to bring things to life early on, I think also would have been really useful. So for example, this is an iteration of a homepage that we're working on. And it leans into this like unstoppable messaging and these encouraging sort of like you bring the brains, we'll bring everything else. People are really excited about this, but I feel like we've lost a little bit of momentum along the way. This will probably roll out this quarter. And then just like finding a few more quick wins. This is a screen from Match, which is one of the games that we have in our app. And we mocked this up as when we introduced the brand to the company, but we didn't end up building this into the product. And I think it would have been great for us and for some sort of like internal momentum to have some of these things like ready to roll out as we kick things off. And that is it. I should have put my email address. I'm just Laura at Quizlet if you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I know this goes a little bit outside of sort of the traditional PMM scope, but I think it's really interesting because PMM doesn't operate in a silo. We are connected to like every other part of our marketing org. So figuring out how we work together, I think is helpful for all aspects of how we think about sort of like who we are and how we go to market. So any questions? Yeah, in the back. Let's see.
I'm curious, as you create this new kind of branding and new messaging, one of the things that our company's struggling with as we do it is like getting our sales team to buy into the new messaging because they're used to selling the product a certain way.
Yeah.
So how do you go creating that kind of change within the organization?
Yeah, I will say, so we don't have a sales team, so I can't speak to that. But when we did this Brand OS project, we made sure that it was not something that was, marketing was leading it, but it was a cross sort of functional, I would say like leadership initiative. So like our CEO, our VP of product, our VP of Eng, our head of business development, our head of international, like all were in the meetings where we were workshopping this stuff. So it was initiated out of marketing, but made sure that we had this sort of more cross-functional buy-in. And then along the way, as we would sort of get to different checkpoints, I made sure to loop in sort of key, I would say like influencers in the company to get their buy-in. So for example, an engineer who's been at Quizlet for 6 years that a lot of people look up to. Like I wanted to make sure that that person felt good about this direction so that, you know, as they were hearing rumblings, they could end up being sort of a voice of, I don't want to say reason, but of confidence in the company. So I think that worked well for us, and that was something that I focused probably more of my time on, was that like cross-functional buy-in than on, I don't want to say it was more than the actual project. We worked with an agency to do the project, so there was a lot of work happening outside of me on the brand piece, but my time at Quizlet on this project was very much spent on sort of that cross-functional buy-in piece and on making sure that key stakeholders felt like they could like buy in. You know, an example of this was we had a direction that we were playing with for our brand that was more around coaching, and there was some like very strong feedback that this like was not the right direction for us to go in. And without having that cross-functional buy-in, I may have just been like, great, coaching it is. Like, we're a coaching company now. And then we would have rolled it out and it would have sort of like hit and thunked down. So having those people that you trust in the room along the way, one, made the project go in, I think, like a stronger overall direction, but also ensured that sort of the people who report up into those people were getting little bits and pieces of information as we went.
Anyone else? Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a mission statement versus a guide for launch.
Yeah.
So how do you socialize this?
Yeah, the mission statement came, you know, like our CEO, when he started at the same time I did, so about 3.5 years ago, he was like, we need a mission statement. And Quizlet had been for a long time like a bootstrapped company. I should have said we're like a 14-year-old Series B company, which is like a little bit of a strange combination. So for the first 10 years of Quizlet, it was like 12 people, and it was just bootstrapped and raised a Series A in October of 2015. And shortly after that, our CEO came in, and he was like, we needed like values and a mission statement, and he really led those efforts. That like learn on mantra was something that we wouldn't take our mission statement to market. We wouldn't put that on like an ads campaign or an ad campaign. We wouldn't use it in an email. Whereas I think like learn on is more consumer facing language and something that we felt did a good job of demonstrating our brand in sort of like a more verbal way. And that I think like I wouldn't generate a mission out of the marketing department. I think I would probably think of that as something that like a leadership team would develop for the entire company, whereas something that's more like a slogan or mantra, I think, can come out of marketing.
Hi, thanks. Your brand OS, how long did that take you to iterate through, and who did you find to be important stakeholders in the room for that? Yeah,
we kicked off this project in the beginning of 2019. And I want to say it was about 3 months. So we worked with an external agency. We did like a whole RFP process, which is bizarrely difficult. We're in San Francisco. Every agency we've talked to has worked with all the same companies. They've all worked with like Google and Facebook and Airbnb and like Uber, all on different projects. So it's like very difficult to figure out like who's doing which part of all these companies that are like super famous and have very strong brands. But we found a partner. We wanted someone who was a smaller agency that we felt like we could work sort of more intimately with than sort of being sold by a bunch of like founders or principals and then working with like an account manager who's a little bit more maybe junior. I want to say it took us about 3 months of work to get to a place. And there was some other pieces of this project. There was like a messaging framework and some creative principles that we developed as well. But I want to say it was like basically a month of user interviews and then maybe like, and research, competitive research, a month of sort of like workshopping a direction, which was like that brand OS, and then a month of what does that mean in terms of things that we would actually use, like messaging and sort of taglines and those kind of things.
How did your work have an impact on like the creative design element?
How did my work? Yeah, this is I want to say a sore spot for me. One, so this project didn't include like colors and fonts and those pieces of the visual representation of the brand. Again, part of getting buy-in for me was figuring out where we could have an influence. And I knew, for example, if I was like, hey, I also want all of our product designers to use something new and I want to change this, that would be like, people would immediately like prickle, like, ooh, get out of our space, you know? That would be like a different cross-functional sort of buy-in initiative. And so I would say it's impacted our work in that out of this brand OS came sort of a set of creative principles that we use. So one is like be real about the challenges of learning, be empathetic because the journey is tough, celebrate the wins. And so we've tried to use those in developing like language and messaging across like email, across modals, across other kinds of things we're bringing to market. But this was one of my, like, if I had to do it again, I might have tried to like chunk off a slightly bigger piece of ownership with this project. I think we'll end up probably doing like a full scale like creative rebranding in the next 18 months. But I'm happy taking it sort of where I can get it. So.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone,